We simply cannot afford a nuclear arms race in the Middle East as a consequence of Iran developing nuclear weapons and the ability to deliver such weapons.
That's the big issue, isn't it? Words of warning there from the National Security Advisor, and they come as new developments are now pouring out of Iran. President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad making some new threats, saying that his country will deliver a, quote, harsh blow to, quote, global arrogance on February the 11th. Now, that is an important day in Iran. It's the anniversary of the Islamic Revolution of 1979. And just moments ago, we're hearing now reports that 9 more people will be executed as a result of this summer's bloody protest that you watched here on Fox News. Now, opposition leaders Mousavi and Karoubi are promising to continue their fight for freedom. They are being very courageous in this very tough situation. Last week, these 2 men, one of them was 19 or 20 years old, the other 37 years old. If we have the picture of the 2 of them, we'll bring it up as soon as we can. They were hanged, and their charge was that they were, quote, enemies of God for their participation in some groups that the government doesn't approve of there. It raises serious concerns over what is going on there and what will happen on February the 11th. Excuse me. Ambassador John Bolton is the former U.S. ambassador to the UN and a Fox News contributor. Ambassador, these are very disturbing developments that are coming out of Tehran, and I think it's really important that people understand just how oppressive this regime is being and how they're treating these people. They're promising a harsh blow on February 11th. What do you think that means?
Well, almost certainly it will have something to do with their ongoing nuclear weapons or ballistic missile program, some progress that they think they've made. You take anything this regime says with a grain of salt, but I think they're playing both to a domestic and an international audience, telling us and the rest of the world they're not backing away from getting nuclear weapons, and telling their domestic audience that resistance to the regime is interfering with their independence.
Ahmadinejad is in a very tough position. They have some really serious economic problems going on there. He's struggling. You can almost feel this man's struggle to maintain power where he is. Sanctions are sort of looming against them, some new sanctions. Whether or not they're going to have teeth, we don't know, but they seem to fear them to some extent. And also this news of a missile shield in some of their neighboring countries. And he says, we have a great relationship with Kuwait and the UAE and all of these countries, so why are you building a missile shield against us there?
Look, Iran's diplomats even now are working with the Arab states of the Gulf region to try and convince them that the Obama administration and the United States don't have the resolve to stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons. And the Gulf states are very worried about possible retaliation from Iran or hegemony by Iran if they get nuclear weapons. So we're in a very difficult position. I don't think anybody's persuaded by the threat of more sanctions.
Now, when you hear about this missile shield that the administration wants to put in this area because they're concerned, and it's also a protection, obviously, for Israel and anything coming from there. First of all, Ahmadinejad said, oh, it wouldn't protect them. You know, what you're doing would not protect them. And we all remember that the missile shield in Eastern Europe was canceled by this administration.
Well, 2 things. First, some of these shipments of new weapon systems to the Gulf states were planned during the Bush administration. I think it's a good thing to do. I think we need to show Iran and show our friends in that region that we do have resolve. But I'm more worried about the underlying possibility that the administration, our administration, is now convinced that Iran will get nuclear weapons. You'll remember last year Secretary of State Clinton said we would put a defensive umbrella over Israel and the Arab states in that case. I think that's a bad mistake, because if you accept that Iran is going to get nuclear weapons, which is the most likely outcome at this point, the situation in the region and in the world as a whole changes dramatically and irreparably.
What can we do, and should we be doing anything? Because some of the charges against these first 2 men that were hung was that they were working basically for the United States to incite these protests within the country. There's no, evidence as to that. That's the charge. It's difficult to know what the charges are when you're thrown at things like enemies of God. That being said, what can we do to, sort of encourage, if that's what we should do, this rebellion and these protesters on February 11th?
Well, we've missed a lot of opportunities over the years. I don't think it's too late, however, to provide both overt and clandestine assistance to the opposition. We want to be very careful we don't taint them with our assistance. But I think it's a mistake for the United States to encourage people to go into the streets against the Revolutionary Guards when we're not providing them with tangible assistance. It's too easy for us to say, you take care of it. I think we should have a policy of regime change. I think we should be helping the dissidents.
Well, remember that young woman, Neda, who bled to death death in the street, who apparently wasn't part of any protest, and now you have 9 more hangings coming of people who, we have no idea if they were guilty of anything in Tehran. So it's very important to keep an eye on this. Ambassador Bolton, always good to do that with your help. Thank you so much, sir. Good
Glad
to
to
see
be
you.
here.
Martha, we're watching
Bill?
some development.